Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Today's session is going to be like more of like a hands-on labs. We are going to show some of the demos from the infrastructure as a code. That is the main topic today. So before getting into that, I just want to give you some overview that what we are going to do for the upcoming weeks. As we have taken sessions in the previous weeks, like we have taken Azure Fundamentals AZ900. So you all would have been familiar with the Azure functionalities high level, and that helps you Azure Fundamental exam. So from last week, we are focusing on Microsoft Azure Architect Technologies. This is AZ303 exam. So in this exam, it is more of like a architect and engineer level of syllabus. Like you need to familiar with your Azure functionalities, architecting, how you are going to architect for your organization. Sometime like you will need to understand engineer level as well. It's a mix of engineer and architect. So we thought like this will be a good topic for us to go through for the upcoming week, so that you can learn the engineering activity as well as the architect way of thinking. So that's the plan. So just getting into that, hope you all familiar now Milton Keynes Azure User Group. This is part of the Azure User Group initiative, and you all know who I am, so I don't want to waste time here. So the skill measure for this AZ30 exam is more of like implementing and monitoring your Azure infrastructure. That is going to be like 50% of your questions. And implement, manage, and security solutions. So security related, how you are implementing securities. That's also key important here. Then you have the apps, web apps, app services you are going to explore. And the last one is the data platform. So these four categories are mainly measured for your scoring, and these are the areas we are going to cover. But these areas are split into multiple building blocks. So here you can see in the fundamentals we explored high level what network means, what storage means, etc. Right? So here in this exam we'll be going into one step ahead, what actually network means, how we are actually configuring, while configuring what are the limitation and boundaries. So those things we are going to explore. So last week we picked up the Azure compute infrastructure purely on the virtual machines, but still some more areas to cover. So whenever I am going to conduct a session, you will have the title of the session and the list of topics we are going to cover. Those items will be fall under one of these building blocks. So today's topic is mainly on infrastructure as a service. So today we are going to talk about infrastructure service, resource manager, Azure PowerShell, ARM template. If you have time, then we can explore the Azure automation or Visual Studio. So the first thing is infrastructure as a code. What does this means and how this is going to help us and what is the benefit? So the name itself giving you the meaning, right? So the infrastructure, till now, whatever we have seen, we have Azure portal. We go to the Azure portal and create a resource group and then create a resources under the resource group. You also have a subscription. You have your own tenant. Everything you are configuring through the web browser, but it takes a time. For a demo, we may show you small things that may take like a 10 minutes or a 15 minutes. What if you are building a multi-tier architecture, like you have a 25 resources you are building, and that resources you wanted to configure first for your development, and then you have a staging environment, pre-production, and production. So four different environments you have to build before you go to live. So how do you build this? In case the production has some issues and you need to replicate or create another environment for business continuity, how will you create? So if the production application whatever you are working on, if it has multiple resources, it is not a good practice to manually create, right? So infrastructure as a code is going to help you to manage and provision the compute resources through script languages. It could be a any languages. Like so right now, we are focused on Azure PowerShell. So Azure PowerShell is the key areas we are going to explore today. And we also seen multiple options like Azure command line interface, PowerShell, CloudShell from the browser, or you can use third parties like Terraform, or you can also create ARM templates. All of those items we are going to explore today. Whatever the areas we can cover today, we can cover. Otherwise, the remaining item we can pick up next week. So the benefits, as you've seen, like it's a consistency, right? So when you are developing a environment, one environment to another environment, whatever the time you spent on first environment, the same will be reusable because you already created the script for one environment. The same thing you can create in the another. So reusability is the key area. Second thing, if you wanted to speed up your deployment, that's also has. And then one environment to another environment, many times when we are working on a larger project, we have a consistency problem. Because of that, some of the workloads, if you don't have, when you are working on a deployment or a testing, you found lots of issues. That's because of you don't have the same configurations. That is the another problem. Because it is going to be a ARM template based deployment, you can extend what are the resources you wanted. That is also one of the benefit. So now if you are familiar with the infrastructure as a code. So this is only theory, right? We need to see how practically works. Before going to the practical demos, we covered this on the first session as part of the Azure fundamental. So resource manager is the management layer, which is helping us to provision the Azure infrastructure or the public cloud. Here you can see like you have a Azure portal. Through the portal, whatever you are doing, it actually goes into resource manager underline, and resource manager taking care of the your resources provisioning. Same way, you can use Azure PowerShell or Azure command line interface. This can help you. Also, you have the other REST clients. You can use that. So Azure fundamental and Azure PowerShell and Azure command line interface is actually using the SDKs, which can be used for deploying the resources. So now we are going to explore a couple of things. So I'm going to minimize this. Let me open Azure portal first. Please feel free to stop me wherever you have a question, you are not able to follow the conversation, then we can clarify there and then we can continue. So now I logged into my Azure portal. So first thing we'll explore today, few things, right? Like the templates. So when I say template, it's the Azure ARM templates. Like when you simply search for a template, you can find here a template, and then you can just go and say, okay, I wanted to add a new template. You can give a name to the template. The template for today, it's 13 March demo. So once you provided the names, then you get into a ARM template. Oh, it's a very blank code. Nothing is there. So from here, we are going to start our scripting. So you can see here the schema.
Just Karthik, what is ARM template? Sorry.
Azure Resource Management Template.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So that's the name. So
okay,
for as we've seen, like the PowerShell script is the one we are going to use for managing the resources. PowerShell is actually calling the Azure SDK, and Azure SDK is actually calling the resource manager. Resource manager will help us to provision this, but PowerShell is going to be like a one-line statement. But within the PowerShell itself, we cannot tell to resource manager that I want to provision 25 VMs, right? If you start writing a PowerShell for 25 VM creation, it's going to take lots of time. That is why we have a template. So we first create a template, take this template and give it to PowerShell. I'll simply go and say, PowerShell, please use this template to create my Azure resources. So first, before we get into PowerShell, I'm just talking about the template first. Then I'll go into Azure PowerShell. From there, you will have the full flow. So the schema,
Thanks.
sure. The schema, you can see here, the schema is mainly used for deployment. This is for the resource manager. You can skip these dates because from that date till now, there is no major change. That's why the schema remains same. And the version number here, because this is the first time we are creating, the version starts from here. If you are updating the version every time, like every day you have adding some resources, removing, then you can manage the version number on yourself. You can manage that version number so that you know from one to another how you made a difference, right? So next you see two parameters here. So parameters and then resources. Parameters is actually used for, if I'm creating a storage account, in the resources I will say I wanted to create a storage account, but I have not given my parameter name at the time. Then what will happen when you execute this PowerShell? Sorry, using a JSON file, you are running a PowerShell script. PowerShell will ask you what is your resource name. So if you don't want to do that, you can also use parameters to configure that. So let me show a couple of things. I think I have a storage. Bear with me. Okay, I think it's take time. Let's use the virtual network. So template. Okay, so first, what we have seen here, the schema and your content version resources. So here, let's add a resource, which is mainly talk about my, okay, I'm just going to paste here. So now you can see here, I don't have any parameter, I have only resources. In this resources, I'm creating a storage account. So when I write, this is JSON format. So we are not going to discuss the JSON format today. We are assuming like JSON format, you guys are familiar. In case we need to learn that, then we can plan another session. For now, you just imagine you have a schema, you have a content version. Now we are in the resource section. I'm adding a resource, which is storage account. So previously, when we saw the Azure portal, you can go to Azure portal and simply create a. So I'm going to the portal again. So when you create a resource, and you can select storage. From here, you can just select this Azure storages. Where is it? Yeah. So simply you select the storage account, and then you are creating. Then you are giving the value that you wanted to know the resource. Like you need to give them the resource name, storage account name, location, what type of performance, what type of the account kind, and whether you wanted a local redundant or geo redundant. So that information you are giving. This is manually you are feeding into the portal. But the same thing you can see here. I'm creating a resource. I'm creating a storage account. The API version is standard that we not changing that. And the name you need to provide the unique name here. Like what is your storage account name? and you have the location is East US, and you are selecting SKU, which is the type of the storage account is standard local redundant service, and the kind is storage version 2. So this information, once I scripted, what happening, like same script I can run it in development, same script I can run it in staging, non-production and production. So 4 different environments, same thing I can run it. But I don't want the name hard-coded here. Every environment I wanted to change it. Like if you wanted to change it or if you want to reusable, then the resources you added here, you wanted to easily find out, like you don't want to go find out the name always and replace the code. If you have a single parameter section, like you develop and give it to some deployment person and say, hey, I've created the script, you just simply change your name of the parameter, then the rest is easy. So in the another example, we are going to quickly see the same script. So resources we added previously, now we added parameters. So in the parameters, you are adding a storage name and then the values. So when somebody execute this, they will be collecting the storage name from the script, and that name you entered goes into this resources name value. So if I'm going to deploy this, so if before I run this script, let's give you a couple of things, right? So now you understand how the ARM template structure works. You have a schema, you have parameter, you have resources. The same resources, you can add multiple resources. Like currently we added only storage account. If the same thing, if I'm going to create some virtual network which has a multiple subnets, right? So this is the sample code for a virtual network with multiple subnet. So now we can see here parameters remain same. Here we are actually passing the value for virtual network name, and then the these are like your address prefix. Once you given the parameters for most of your resources, you are creating virtual network and the IP details and subnet name, etc. You can see here the resources what we are adding. We are first adding a virtual network, and then we are adding a subnet 1 and then subnet 2. So you have one virtual network with the 2 subnets, and the name for the subnet 1 and 2 is actually passed into this parameter. So if I create a virtual network with the 2 subnet, the names I'm giving here, I call it like a dev subnet, dev vnet. But when it goes to staging, the name has to be called staging vnet, staging subnet. So that is easily, you can simply take this JSON file, go to the parameter section, simply make a changes to your names. So that for example here vnet it's called, I can simply change this to staging vnet. So the configuration remains same, only the name you wanted to change is from one environment to another environment. So you can use this kind of parameter section. So now we are high level familiar with the ARM template, what it means, how it look like, right? So what are we created through portal, the same thing you can create a script, then this can be used in the PowerShell. So now before going to PowerShell, in the slide we talk about few things, right? There are Azure PowerShell, command line interface, and CloudShell. So you can see here there is a CloudShell symbol here. Hope you are able to see my mouse over. When you go to the CloudShell, when you click this, it is actually opening up a simple browser-based PowerShell window where you can just select Bash script or PowerShell script, and then you provide your subscription name. Just to run this browser-based CloudShell, you need to have a storage account. That's why it is asking you to create a storage account. So once you create that, it allows you to run your scripting. So a few things we are going to explore today. In case you are not able to follow any of this, you can stop me in the middle, or we can debate those topics in the end of the session. So feel free. because this session is for you. It's not for me. So you need to ask question if you have anything. So first we are connecting to CloudShell. It is trying to connect. So just imagine I'm in the holiday and my manager is calling me. Hey, there is some problem. We don't have any skill set now. Can you do this? All I need is one browser with the internet connection. Just log into my Azure portal. I can use this PowerShell script to run my scripting. So now I'm authenticating to Azure. So now we are ready for running the script. I'm just going to create something like a storage account or a resource group. Let's create a resource because resource group is very simple, right? So new AZ resource group. There is a naming convention. You need to follow like capital, small letter, which you will familiar when you start learning the PowerShell and doing some practice. So now I'm creating like a sample. Okay, always we use RG in the front, right? RG resource group underscore 13 Feb 01. So this is the name of the resource group, and then we need to give the location. So for now, I'll say East US. Then enter. So now to create the resource group, I just used a new Azure resource group, and then I pass the name of the parameter and the location parameter. It creates my resource group, and it's telling me that the provisioning is succeed. So if I just go to my Azure portal and I'm going to my resource group, which I can access from resource group. Okay, here you can see the resource group created for storage account. Okay, where is it? Should come. Okay, resource group. Okay, so now you can see here my resource group created here. Resource group is just a container, right? To add your resources. So the resource group container is a simple example we have created through Azure CloudShell. The Azure CloudShell is the one you are accessing through the browser. Hope you are clear on this one. Is there any questions? Okay, so if no questions, then the next things we are going to see Azure PowerShell.
Just Karthik,
Yeah.
I'm not from the infra side background, so VNet, subnet. So just like, can you just sum it up? Like what we have done now. Last time we did via the browser, each screen after screen that we created a thing. Now
Yeah.
you are saying we are doing it via
PowerShell.
PowerShell script.
Yes.
And what you have done in the now the template you created so that I could follow. What did you do in the
So,
scripting? Now you executed the template to create a one. Is that
no,
what
so
you
I
have
have
done?
not used ARM template till now. I'm going to use that later. For now, I'm just showing you that there is something called Azure Cloud Shell, which can, without any software, like we don't need any desktop software, because PowerShell is you need a machine with the PowerShell client installed. But if you don't have any client software, how do you manage your Azure? So simply you can go to the browser. Once you logged into Azure portal, there is settings called Cloud Shell, which can help you to manage your environment without any client software. So this is one of the option to manage it. So what we are seeing here, whatever we are creating manually, the resource group, the same thing we are only just a resource group we created through PowerShell here. So the command you can see here, resource group, new resource group I'm creating. This is my name and this is the location.
Okay.
It's just one example.
Okay.
Okay. So next one, we are going to explore the PowerShell. So PowerShell, I'm unsure how many of you are familiar with the PowerShell, right? So when you wanted to provision any cloud resources with the scripting, PowerShell is the um, Windows client um, software available. Once you install the PowerShell, you can use the PowerShell command, PowerShell window, to create your Azure resources or manage it. So first, to install the PowerShell, normally any Windows 10, you will have a PowerShell. I don't know whether you are able to see the screen. So let me. So PowerShell here. So PowerShell, when you are in the Azure, sorry, Windows 10 machine, you have Windows PowerShell and Windows. You can see here Windows PowerShell ISC. This is also one of the interface where you can run your PowerShell. So once you, by default, this comes with the Windows 10 laptops. So in Windows 10, can you see this PowerShell window here?
Yes,
Yeah,
Karthik.
Karthik.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can see. Yeah.
Okay, so this PowerShell window is the Windows client. It is part of the Windows 10 laptop or any Windows Server laptop. This is by default available. But this PowerShell is just a PowerShell platform. But you need to install your Azure modules. Without Azure modules, you cannot run any scripting, right? So when you deploy SDK or Azure module, you can use your Windows PowerShell to execute that. So I think the session is going to end in 8 minutes. Once the session is end, please rejoin it so we can continue our sessions. Is that okay?
Yes, Karthik. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. So normally Windows 10 laptops comes with the PowerShell client, but the PowerShell client need a Azure modules so that when you try to run script like this, like a new uh, AZ resource group, this is the key you need to use it to create the resource group. If you don't have the Azure module, then this, when you run this script, this will say like invalid command. So you need to install Azure module. So we'll go one by one how you deploy that. So first step, we need to install the PowerShell. When you go to this Azure PowerShell documentation, you can see to install the PowerShell, Azure PowerShell, you need to have a minimum the Windows PowerShell 5.1, which is normally comes with the Windows 10 laptop. You don't need to worry. Then you can simply run this PowerShell module for installing from Azure PowerShell from the cloud resources. You can simply run some command. Um, so So when you run this, it is actually do what it is doing, like install module and AZ module. So this is the Azure Resource Man ARM. Previously, there is something called Azure RM scripting. So these scriptings are decommissioned. Now the new command we are using, which is called AZ. Just this keyword you can see AZ. This is the command, the script we are using now, because the AZ ARM Azure RM, it's old scripting which is expired. Now we are using the AZ script. In case you are using any old version of Azure SDK, you need to upgrade to the newer version. So in this example, they are explaining like install for Azure module. So when you run this, it automatically install the modules. So then you can go into your Azure PowerShell. In my case, here you can see like the modules I have already, the Azure module I have already deployed. So that is why you can see here AZ commands are available. This scripting is already available. So if I wanted something like a new Azure AZ resource, so you can see here all the command available because I already installed my Azure AZ module. So normally the installing Azure module, you can simply run some script install AZ modules. So let me go back here. So the same way, like this is the one you run it. Since I already have, it is going to say it is already, I already deployed. So you can simply run this command. It is going to run for, it is because I already have, it is trying to reinstall. Here in the message, you can see run scripting selection. So I'm just going to close this because I already have. So now the first example, because now we are not connected to the Azure tenant, right? So when I'm in the Azure portal, first I logged in, then I clicked my CloudShell. So my CloudShell already knows that Karthik already logged into the Azure portal, and that is why when I clicked here, the Azure PowerShell command here, it doesn't ask me to authenticate because it's already authenticated through the portal. But when I'm in the PowerShell screen, the system doesn't know who I am, right? So first, like simply imagine like you have Windows laptop, you opened up the PowerShell, and you have the Azure modules, but how my PowerShell will know that where I need to go and create it? So for that, you just first need to connect your machine with the your online scripting. So first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to run the command connect-az connect. So this is the AZ account. So this is the command. When I run this, it will ask me to enter the credential. So here you can see once I run this connect-az account, it open up the screen where I'm going to enter my Azure.admin. Then it is asking me password. So now I'm successfully logged in. Now I need to set the context. Like I logged into my tenant, but I may have a more than one subscription. If I have a more than one subscription, which subscription I want to run this command? So I'm going to use. So I'm just keeping the script here for usable for you to understand. So set-az context. This is my subscription name. So I'm adding my subscription name. So simply select and run only this line. It says, okay, I connected to your subscription. Now the same thing what we have done in the Azure Cloud Shell, I'm going to create one simple same command, new -Azure resource group, and then I'm going to give my resource group name, RG_Feb 13. And then I'm giving the location, different location this time. So run this command. So now the command executed from my local machine. First I connected to my Azure tenant, and then I passed my subscription name. Then I created my resource group called RG_Feb 13. Then it says succeed. So now the next one is to create the resources using JSON file. The JSON file, what are we configured before? I have one sample file. I'm going to open here. Okay, I think it is in here. We are going to see multiple options. I think the session is going to close now. Let's stop and rejoin. And when I rejoin, I will start continuing the other sections like we can use the JSON script, what are we developed. Using that, I will run my command from my PowerShell. Please rejoin. Probably like in 1 or 2 minutes, we will join and then we'll continue the session, please.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Yeah.